Welcome to Keep It Healthy. Today, I'm thrilled to have Christine Allen, a visionary leader in health tech and fertility innovation, currently making waves at fertility consultancy and CryoFuture. Christine specializes in revolutionizing fertility treatments and advancing cryogenic technology, bringing cutting-edge solutions to the healthcare industry. Stay tuned as we explore her journey, delve into the dynamic challenges of health tech and fertility, and discuss the future directions of these groundbreaking fields. Welcome to Keep IT Healthy podcast, the show hosted by people making things happen in technology, aiming to optimize healthcare delivery, health, well-being, and fitness. My name is Jan Kamiński and I'm the co-founder of AppLover, a company dedicated to improving the quality of life with IT solutions and digital advisory. We started making this podcast to amplify great thinking to propel healthcare forward.
I always wanted to work as an embryologist, always. I never saw myself doing anything else. And cryogenics came because I started researching techniques of vitrification for a master's. I got involved in a project during college years while I was doing an internship and doing research in a clinical lab. And I started seeing that there was a much better way than slow freeze embryos. That was the technique at that time in the late 90s. And I got the opportunity to start studying that. And it was a big no-no at that time. Nobody ever thought that anyone would ever vitrify embryos and eggs. And I heard several times from several specialists and really famous researchers that vitrification would never happen. Until one day, I got to meet a group in Tokyo that was working with Americans in here with this laboratory supplier called Irvine Scientific, that they thought that they could make this work and they needed somebody to work on this. I came to US, started working with vitrification, and this is all we do now. And since vitrification is a very sensitive technology and requires a lot more attention from the cryogenics point of view, I started studying, okay, now we know that we can vitrify, but how do we keep this safe? And then developing that and making sure that we have controls for cryogenics evolved into studying more about this and what can go wrong and avoid accidents. Unfortunately, we had terrible accidents involving cryogenics in US about 5 to 10 years ago, and I worked on those investigations.
Really? What happened?
Accidentally or incidentally, in the same day, two large facilities with tanks had accidents with their big tanks, and they lost all the material inside. And those became class action lawsuits and federal investigation. And of course, they needed experts. I got involved in that, and that triggered the need for everyone in this industry to take this very seriously and avoid that kind of accidents. So I started working with a few different groups to develop better ways to avoid accidents like this. And cryogenics became part of my main area of research and development since then.
In your opinion, how technology is currently revolutionizing the fertility treatments and also, as was important, patient couple experiences?
Technology is making infertility treatment a lot more traceable. It's bringing us a completely different level of traceability and efficiency. So IVF is still a very artisanal procedure inside the laboratory, but we are creating embryos. And if you think any manufacturer out there that is creating anything as a material or something that is going to be used by an owner or a patient in the future, you see high levels of automation just because you want to maintain quality control and you want to maintain a certain level of efficiency in all these laboratories. We didn't have this until very few years ago in IVF. So it was very hard to trace back if environmentals in the laboratory were kept right. It was very hard to trace if people were well trained in the laboratory, how well everybody is performing their work. And
Right.
the technology is just bringing opportunities for us to do a better job, more efficient, faster, and with better quality for patients. So there's a reflection of all this in the pregnancy rates. So in the past, we had maybe 20% pregnancy rates overall in US and even less than that in other countries. But today we have up to 60% pregnancy rates or babies at home after an IVF cycle in US, which is outstanding. However, we still have a lot of room for progress because we're not any close to where we want to be for accessibility and for the success rates for patients. So I think technology is bringing us close to that.
Of course, by accessibility, you mean the cost of the IVF?
Cost and actual access. If you think you have an IVF clinic with, let's say, 3 doctors in one laboratory, that facility can only handle a certain number of cases per year, right? Now, if a patient has to come 5 times to get pregnant, it's going to take an allocation of time and resources for that one couple to go home with their baby. If that patient comes once and pays just once and goes home with their baby, you have opportunity in one facility for the same amount of financial investment to treat 5 patients and just not one. So when you
Right.
look at cost and quality, at the end of the day, for the majority of patients, having a better rate of success is always going to be best because it also helps other patients around to have access to the resources of a great facility that is going to make them pregnant faster. So I think
Mhm.
everything revolves over quality at the end of the day, both access and rates, but it's not necessarily how it's seen in our field.
I mean, how does, in general, the fertility consultancy leverage data analytics to improve treatment, to improve treatment outcomes, and personalize the care for each patient, for each couple, etc.?
So fertility consultancy is a different model of business. It's not an IVF clinic. We are a group of consultants that go to IVF clinics and either implement a new technology or we troubleshoot or we build a new clinic. So we are there to make things better and more efficient and try to make a sustainable way to operate IVF clinics. So, of course, if we are going there to make quality overall better, if it's a problem with a pregnancy rate or problem with operations or they need a new technology and they're not getting there exactly to figure out what they need, at the end of the day, patients ultimately benefit from that because they will have a better treatment and a better experience. On a level of personal management of each patient, I think it's a matter of choosing the right team. If you have a safe environment where everything is running smoothly and you have the luxury to have a good cohesive team working in there, there will be time to dedicate to each personal patient. When things are chaotic and not providing the right results, there's always friction that is going to be caused in the team related to that difficulty. And of course, patients are going to ultimately suffer the consequences of that, that is, having poor rates of pregnancy.
Right, but as I understand, your clients are, or in this particular business, the clients are IVF clinics.
Yes.
So, what technical advancements, for instance, do you, or are you able to implement?
We can implement safety and quality control measurements in the laboratory and on the clinical side to avoid mismatches, which is the biggest terror of patients, right?
What do you mean by that?
They don't want to go home with the wrong baby
Okay, Jesus, that
or to be inseminated by the wrong sperm.
right. That would be
So we do see that on the news one too many times. And I think that's the terror of anyone working in an IVF clinic, not only
okay.
for patients, but for professionals too. So we do implement measures to avoid all that and to identify risk factors that could lead to that. We implement new technologies that can streamline things in a safer way. That goes all the way from change in the cold chain of receiving disposables, something very simple. And it goes all the way to implementation of AI for clinical measurements or for clinical work with patients. And that could be also in the laboratory. How do we choose the best sperm to put inside each egg? That is something that our eyes don't see exactly everything that is happening because we're just that good as humans seeing things. But a computer with millions of data points analyzing each sperm can tell us a lot better what's the best cell to go inside the other cell.
Yeah, but shouldn't those advancements or this tech be a standard, or do you think it should become a standard practice in the near future?
It should become standard, definitely. But there's something that we have to be very careful with in the fertility industry and maybe in other industries too that I just don't know about. But specifically in the fertility industry, we have to be careful to add ons that are new things that are charged extra for an IVF case that actually prove patient benefit. So
Uh-huh.
we have a lot of new things and new technologies that are out there that don't prove to be an advantage for patients. I'll give you an example. There's this technology called time-lapse incubators. Time-lapse incubators doesn't directly, or it hasn't been proven from validation studies to directly benefit patients. So if you put an embryo in a regular incubator or if you put it in a time-lapse incubator, there's no direct effect that says that the patient is going to get pregnant faster if the embryos go on a time-lapse incubator. It is just an incubator that has a camera. And so it makes a video of the entire development of the embryo inside the laboratory. However, a time-lapse incubator can greatly streamline the work of embryologists in a laboratory, making it things much easier because it's a mammal development. It has to be checked in very specific times. And we don't have 24/7 embryologists working in there. So for things to be more efficient in the laboratory, it's much desirable for the team of specialists that are in that lab to have that technology. And as you have a more flexible time to work with those embryos because they're in a time lapse, and because you have more opportunity to tailor your day working in a laboratory in a way that you're not going to be there for those 20 hours a day, that has a reflection in the overall pregnancy rates because you have a better work environment for everyone. So we
Uh-huh.
can't really say this has been validated and every specific patient that goes in there is going to have a better pregnancy rate. But when you look at operational models, that's a benefit. On the other
Yeah.
hand, you have things that have been used for many years and it's extra charge. And I'm not going to go into the details of what specific things those are because there's people out there defending it and selling it. And I don't want to create friction in here with colleagues, but there are a lot of things out there that are being sold as add-ons to patients that offer no benefit at all. So
Uh-huh.
for us to say what should be standard of care and not standard of care takes time. Like AI, right now we have plenty of clinical validations of machine learning opportunities, but actual AI that is proven to be a benefit to patients, we're just not there yet.
Right.
I do believe it will be standard of care, but it's a time game right now to collect all the data and collect the data with proper study designs that are not looking into validate something that you can sell immediately, but to actually study what are the benefits and how do we best address all the challenges that come with it. But again, all this takes time.
With new technological advancements, obviously, there's always a question of ethical standards. And what are some of the, in your opinion, biggest ethical considerations you face in the fertility industry, especially, as mentioned, with emerging tech like genetic screening and others?
We do have excellent professionals everywhere for fertility clinics. However, we're humans and we know that we have different concepts of ethics, right? And we have this one concept that unfortunately we see out there, and it's a vile pattern of behavior, but it exists. That is, think with me in here. Let's do an exercise. A plastic surgeon, that is an elective surgery, right? Like IVF, you're not going to die if you don't do it. If they do a bad job, patients don't come back.
Right.
Now let's see a different type of model in medicine, cardiac surgery. If the team doesn't do a good job, the patient dies and they don't come back. Now, for infertility treatment, if a patient goes through IVF and doesn't get pregnant, what happens? They come back and do it again.
Yeah.
So you just got paid double, and the patient just spent double the money. With insurance coverage, insurance pays a lot less to the practices. So if a patient gets pregnant on the first IVF cycle, it's a very small income coming to the business. But if they take 5 tries, then it gets a lot more profitable.
Yeah.
And we do see this model and this consideration out there, especially for big groups or big networks or this exists as a model to try to have really good pregnancy rates, but not that good. Because if it's that good, the patients are going to go away. It couldn't be far, in actual terms, this couldn't be farther from the truth, because with better pregnancy rates, you can give more access to more patients, right? And you don't have to build more laboratories and more clinics to give access to patients. You could just do a better job. But this model is out there, and I think it's an ethical challenge that we have to address in our field.
In the US, it's not subsidized by the state, but are you familiar with any countries where IVF treatment is just subsidized by the state, or it's public healthcare provides you with such?
Yes, I think especially in Europe, you have several models of subsidized IVF treatments, but they always have caps, and there are always foreigners coming in and paying out of pocket. So I'm not aware of any country of full subsidized treatments for every single case of IVF of any type, of any person, nationals or not. There are always the exceptions, and there are a lot of exceptions in each country. So yes, subsidizing and reimbursements are playing a role on that, but not fully. Never fully.
I know that obviously the whole treatment is deeply personal, and it is an emotional journey for the patient. So how does your team balance the advancement, so like the consulting, the technological advancements with empathetic patient care?
We try to make everything as easy and streamlined and efficient as possible for all IVF clinics we work with, for the team to have They're centered focus on each one of the patients. And we see that if the operations and the team and the staff, either physicians or non-physicians in an IVF clinic, are working in a good environment where things are going well, they will have their focus on each one of the patients and not on the problems and the delays and the staffing issues and the legal issues that are going on. So what we do is to try to make things as easy as possible for the IVF clinics to make sure that they have their focus on each one of the patients.
Okay, and you mentioned AI before. You mentioned that it's still not enough in a sense that machine learning isn't really playing a crucial role. It's rather some add-ons. So, what role do you see AI playing in the future of fertility treatment? I mean, how or are you preparing to integrate AI into your practice, or it's rather you're just looking at the market, you're looking at what's happening there?
Absolutely. We already work with AI tools from a management and office point of view. And I think the main role of AI coming into this field or in medicine in general is offering a better opportunity for training of professionals, better opportunity for traceability of treatment, all the way from communications to results, much higher opportunity for quality control of how things go. So we're going to be able to identify red flags or errors in real time and not in a monthly meeting, if so.
Uh-huh.
So I do think AI is going to play a major role. Now, AI alone, as in sci-fi movies, I don't think we're there, and we're not going to be there for long decades. I think we do need supervision of experts, not only in infertility treatment or embryology or medicine in general. We will need supervision and integration of IT groups and specialists in our field because we got to the point where physicians are not trained in IT.
Uh-huh.
You can't get a surgeon to troubleshoot the robot during a surgery. The
Right,
surgeon is there to do surgery. They're not IT professionals.
right,
You
right.
can't expect an embryologist to stop doing retrieval and go troubleshoot the AI software that is grading the embryos. You can't expect that to have specialists that are specialized on everything. So I think integration of IT professionals into the medical care is going to be vital for any of this to work. We do need specialists in biology, in physiology, in medicine, in surgery, working integrated with the IT for each one in a multidisciplinary team to take the best decisions and to make sure everything is going right and red flag anything that is going wrong and keep developing because AI, well, machine learning takes that much longer than a human brain to learn. And specialists, but real specialists, have to be involved on those developments to make sure that we have the right database collected and that when this is in clinical use and standard of practice, that things don't deviate and we're still using for the best and not for the most practical and avoid incidents of bias. And it's complicated. I think this is a great tool that is coming in our field, but it's very complex. And the complexity and time investment and resources investment to make sure that we have good tools, we're not there. It's going to take time.
And since we slightly started talking about the future, you're also engaged in cryofuture. So for our audience, could you explain what it is and what do you do there?
Yeah, I'm an advisor, a senior advisor scientific for CryoFuture. And CryoFuture is today the technology leading cryopreservation bank for embryos, gametes, and everything that is related to infertility and IVF. So we
Mhm.
do believe that the use of technology is going to make things safer. for patients. Because you imagine in an IVF clinic, there has been, since vitrification was introduced, and we have actual efficient ways to cryopreserve embryos and eggs, which wasn't a thing 25 years ago. There was a surge on the number of reproductive materials stored in IVF clinics. But embryology personnel doesn't necessarily know how to handle those things. They're not, an IVF lab is not a biobank. So outsourced facilities that keep this material cryopreserved started popping here and there. But once you put an embryo, which it's that much of a precious thing, right, for patients, you put that inside a tank, it's a black box. You don't know what's happening there. And the whole idea with CryoFuture is to make sure that patients and clinics have peace of mind. Not only during storage, that things are going to be okay when materials are stored there, but also during transportation. So the investment in making sure that things are okay goes beyond anything I have ever seen in any cryobank.
Okay, but like for instance, what safety protocols and measures does CryoFuture implement to your point, to what you just mentioned, to ensure the safe use of cryogenic technology in any medical applications, in fertility treatments, etc.?
Yeah, I'll give you examples. Minimum standards to check if you have the actual liquid nitrogen inside your tanks twice a week in an IVF clinic. That's minimum standards. So the embryologists go there, stick a ruler in there, and kind of measures how much liquid nitrogen is in there to make sure that the samples are actually cryopreserved. Now you imagine in an IVF clinic or in a cryo facility where they have 50 tanks and one embryologist to go there and check. What are the chances that they are going to forget one tank or not see that they didn't check one tank once a week?
Yeah, forget.
It's great. And the person that is not checking doesn't even know that they didn't check. It was an honest mistake. At CryoFuture, there are high technology probes in many parts of that tank that check the level of liquid nitrogen and temperature every second of the day, of every day. And that is stored in a safe cloud, and that is accessible for anyone that wants to see. And then you think, oh, what if something goes wrong? In an IVF clinic, they may or may not have an alarm that is going to call somebody's phone if the liquid nitrogen went off, like ended. Well, how does that help? Because if the tank is empty or it's going down, the sample that is inside there is dead. So you're kind of calling the morgue.
Yeah.
At CryoFuture, you have this high technology system that if anything deviates in a graph, because you're collecting thousands of data points every day, if anything deviates at any point, there's a signal sent to the IT company. And the IT company is going to actually have experts monitoring that 24/7. And they're going to see if there's a problem with the system, or if there's a problem with the hardware, or if there's an actual problem with the tank that needs to be addressed right now so the samples don't get lost. There's so much more time for somebody to get there and handle things the proper way, that even problems happen all the time with anything. Your car may not turn on in the morning, right? Things happen. But the whole point in here is to have always triple redundancy that is independent from one each other in so many ways that if something happens, nothing's going to happen to the sample. And that's the level of technology and investment and expert work that I haven't seen in any other company so far.
Okay, but how would you address the skepticism and regulatory challenges surrounding the whole industry, cryogenic treatments and their efficiency, etc.?
I think because there are so many incidents and accidents and misplaced samples because of lack of traceability and technical errors, they're always on the news. This is greatly affecting the reliability of cryogenic storage and the use of cryopreserved material in infertility.
Well,
And honestly, this comes from lack of regulatory. We just expect every IVF clinic and every cryogenics facility to always do the best and only work with specialists and have the right protocols and the best that they can offer for traceability, but it's not required. So you have a wide range of different cryogenic facilities that offer from the very best, working only with specialists and with the best technology and with traceability and transparency, all the way to facilities that don't have any of that. And they still can operate because it's not regulated. We have the FDA regulating transmission of diseases, but quality and the control of environmentals in the cryogenics is not something that is regulated. And unfortunately, it's translating, the lack of regulation is translating itself into errors and accidents that affect patients.
coming back to the, let's say, future of cryogenics in general, what do you think, is currently the biggest technical challenge? What influences the industry the most from that perspective?
We have the opportunity for traceability now.
What do you mean?
So in the past, we just didn't have the right meanings to make sure we can trace the ID of those patients, where they came from, where they're going, the traceability chain, and the environmentals. Like, have these samples being exposed to any temperature or any environmental challenge that could have had an impact on them, or the sample just didn't survive for something you can't explain. In the past, if a sample went to cryogenics and came back and didn't survive, you just couldn't explain why.
Okay.
Because of technology so much more refined, if the place where the samples were cryopreserved and kept while they were in storage have the proper or the best or the gold standard technology to keep up with everything, there is enough traceability to see if that sample didn't survive, where was the pitfall. You can readily identify if something went wrong, when and how.
What general advancements in cryogenics are you most excited about, or are you following, and how is CryoFuture positioning itself to lead in, let's say, these kind of innovations, even in your field?
Excitingly, it's all IT. It's all IT related. It's how we have a multidisciplinary team working together to bring IT into medicine, to provide overall safety for the treatments that are being done for IVF patients.
With that, we often ask about advice for HealthTech founders, for HealthTech startups, and what would be yours, especially for the companies that want to get into, or like they're specialized in the field, like either cryogenics or fertility, infertility treatments?
My advice to anyone that is from IT and wants to get into the field of infertility, including cryogenics, is talk to a lot of experts before you do anything and make sure it makes sense. There are a lot of incredible ideas that absolutely don't make sense at all. And we know that from IT coming into infertility, 9 out of 10 projects or startups or companies are not going to move forward because it absolutely doesn't make sense and it's not based in science. So the IT part could be really good and the IT team can have the very best intentions, but make sure that you're using something that is biologically sound as a hypothesis. Make sure you're using mathematicians that are using the proper statistical tools, that you're applying the right controls, and you have decent study designs before you start anything at all.
Okay, and where can our audience or our followers find you?
You can find me either on our website from Fertility Consultancy, that is www.fertilityconsultancy.com, or EliteIVFteam.com, that is our US branch.
Okay, amazing. Christine, thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to collaborate with you guys here.
Stay in touch with us. Subscribe to our podcast, give us a like, comment, or share. If you want to reach out personally, you can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram.